The Loire River is a silver vein cut into the throat of France, and in June of 1429, that vein is being choked. For nearly 100 years, the English longbow has been the sound of French despair, a rhythmic, whistling death that has turned a kingdom of golden fields into a kingdom of silent graves. The great city of Orléans has just been saved, but a defensive miracle does not win a war. The English are not broken, they have merely retreated to the stone locks of the Loire. Today, the world will watch as the Maid moves from symbol to commander. Behind the battlements of Jargeau, the Earl of Suffolk waits with 700 elite troops, men who have survived the meat grinder of the 100 Years' War and do not believe in peasant girls or holy visions. He knows his walls are high, 30 feet of limestone and iron resolve. But outside the gates, an impossible momentum is assembling. One teenage girl, guided by voices only she can hear, has overruled the seasoned generals of France to demand an immediate assault. The stakes are absolute. Ahead of them lies the road to Reims and the coronation of a king. The action begins not with a charge, but with a storm of doubt inside the French command tent at Orléans. Joan of Arc stands before the great captains of France, men like the Bastard of Orléans and the fierce, profane La Hire, who have known nothing but the bitter taste of defeat for a generation. Beside her is the Duke of Alençon, the gentle Duke, a man recently ransomed from an English prison. The captains argue for caution, their maps showing the lethal range of English longbowmen and the height of Jargeau's circular towers. Joan dismisses the technical doubts of the veterans with a single terrifying certainty that silences the room. She reminds the Duke of Alençon of the promise she made to his wife, that she would return him home safe and well to her arms. "Have no fear," she tells the council, her voice cutting through the hesitation like a whetted blade. "For God is conducting this campaign, and this is the hour that pleases him." The force of her personality is a physical weight, defying military logic and the ingrained caution of seasoned men. The French army flows toward Jargeau like a river of steel, 10 miles of shimmering armor and white banners under a heavy, oppressive summer sun. The landscape they traverse is a graveyard of burnt villages and neglected crops, a testament to decades of English rule. As the town comes into view, it sits on the southern bank of the Loire, like a jagged tooth of limestone. Its walls are reinforced with circular towers, each one bristling with arrow slits and the dark, hollow eyes of early gunpowder weapons. The outskirts of Jargeau are not empty fields, but a maze of fortified suburbs, houses and garden walls that the English have turned into a lethal outer perimeter. Joan knows that every hour she gives the English is another hour for their longbowmen to refine their sights. She does not wait for the baggage train or the heavy tents to be pitched. She orders the vanguard to strike the suburbs immediately, personally leading the first wave of men into the labyrinth of stone and wood. As the French push deeper into the suburban labyrinth, the Earl of Suffolk recognizes a moment of vulnerability. He launches a violent counteroffensive, the main gates of Jargeau swinging open to release a wave of disciplined English veterans. They slam into the French line with the force of an avalanche, their heavy shields clearing paths through the narrow alleys. The French vanguard begins to buckle under the sheer professionalism of the English response. The old trauma of the last 20 years returns, and the men begin to turn and flee. But Joan of Arc is not a commander who leads from the safety of the rear. Seeing her men fleeing, she does not seek cover. Instead, she seizes her 12-foot buckram banner, the white standard fringed in silk and embroidered with the names of Jesus and Mary, and spurs her horse directly into the path of the retreating soldiers. Shame becomes a more powerful motivator than fear. As she brandishes her banner high, her voice rings out over the din, calling for them to stand firm and remember their purpose. The English sortie is overwhelmed and forced to retreat behind the primary walls, the gates of Jargeau slamming shut. The suburbs are won, and the French have secured a vital foothold. As night falls, the French army does not retreat. They lodge in the ruins of the suburbs they have just captured. The smell of smoke and saltpeter mingles with the river mist as soldiers sharpen their blades. Joan is restless, spent much of the night examining every tower and every weak point in the stone. Dawn on June 12th reveals a battlefield transformed by the arrival of the French siege train. Joan has directed the placement of the guns with an instinct that baffles the veteran engineers. These are the monsters of fire, the bombards and voglaires that will turn the high walls of Jargeau into rubble. The Duke of Alençon watches in silence as she positions the heavy, wrought-iron pieces. She understands the geometry of destruction, choosing angles that prevent the English from using their own towers to flank the infantry. The French artillery of 1429 is a collection of wrought-iron giants constructed of bars, welded together like the staves of a wine barrel. These bombards fire stone balls weighing up to 150 kilograms, while the Voglaires provide a sustained rate of fire that hammers the battlements without pause. The air becomes a pyramid of snowy smoke, and the sound is so intense it reportedly alters the weather, drawing in a strong wind that clears the smoke, hiding the English fortresses. The great artillery duel goes on, each side hammering away with all its might in a display of noise and fire. Huge rocks come curving through the air, plunging through roofs and shattering the streets below. When a gigantic English soldier appears on the walls and begins to cause significant harm, the French cannoneer Jean le Lorrain is ordered to silence him. With a single precise shot, the demon on the wall is struck in the breast and killed instantly, a moment that sends a roar through the French ranks. In the heat of this mechanical chaos, a moment of preternatural foresight occurs. Joan is standing with the Duke of Alençon near the front lines, observing the effect of a specific battery. Suddenly she turns to him, her eyes wide with a strange urgency. "Fair Duke," she commands, "step out of your tracks, or that machine down yonder will be the death of you." The Duke obeys without question and moves aside. Moments later, a massive stone smashes into the exact spot where he had been standing. The bombardment reaches its crescendo as one of Jargeau's main towers finally collapses with a roar that echoes across the Loire. The breach is open, a jagged, smoking wound in the English defense. Suffolk, seeing his elite garrison being buried under falling masonry, realizes the end is near. In a desperate move, he attempts to open surrender negotiations, but he bypasses Joan and Alençon. This breach of protocol incenses the French command. Any thought of a negotiated settlement evaporates. The town will be taken by the storm. Around 9 o'clock, the French army gathers at the edge of the ditch. Joan turns to her gentle duke and gives the final command. "Forward to the assault!" When Alençon hesitates, looking at the strength of the English longbowmen, Joan's reply is absolute. "Have no fear," she tells him. "This is the hour that pleases God. Help yourself, and heaven will help you." She reminds him of her vow, then grabs her standard and leads the charge into the hail of arrows and gunpowder. The French reach the base of the 30-foot wall, the air filled with the buzz of longbow arrows. Joan is among the first to reach the masonry, her white banner fluttering above her like a wing as she places a scaling ladder against the stone. She begins the ascent, her armor reflecting the sun, a target for every English archer. As she nears the top, an English defender heaves a massive stone down upon her. It strikes her squarely on the helmet, knocking her backward into the ditch. Joan falls from the ladder, crashing into the mud of the ditch as a collective gasp ripples through the French ranks. The Maid is down, and for a heartbeat, time seems to stop. But in a display of impossible resilience, she pushes herself up from the mud. She stands, blood trickling from her broken helmet, and grabs her banner once more with hands that do not shake. Her voice rings out across the battlefield, higher than the trumpets. "Up, friends, up! Our Lord has doomed the English!" The effect is psychological electricity. French soldiers, believing they follow a woman who cannot be killed, launch themselves at the walls with a ferocity that borders on madness. They swarm the ladders like ants, pouring over the battlements. English defenders, who have held their ground against the best knights in Europe for decades, find they cannot hold against an army that believes it fights alongside an archangel. The line on the ramparts finally breaks, and the French pour into the narrow streets of Jargeau. The fighting inside the town is brief but savage. The English garrison, overwhelmed by the momentum of the breach, is shattered. Estimates suggest nearly half of the English force is cut down in the streets. The Earl himself is pursued to the fortified bridge, the last stand of the English defense. As he is cornered by a French squire named Guillaume Renaud, a final moment of medieval theatre occurs. Suffolk, unwilling to surrender to a commoner, knights the man on the spot before yielding. The victory at Jargeau is total. In 48 hours, Joan of Arc has captured a strategic river crossing and taken one of England's highest commanders prisoner. She has proven that the miracle of Orléans was not a fluke, it was the birth of a new French military paradigm. The peasant girl who heard voices in a garden has just kicked in the door to the heart of France. The path to Reims is no longer a dream. It is a reality paved in English stone and French steel. History is a record of moments where the impossible became real through human will. Joan of Arc's assault on Jargeau reminds us that leadership is the courage to stand when others run and the vision to see a path where others see only walls. If you want to journey deeper into the fires of history and witness the moments that forged our world, make sure to join our community. Scan the code from the screen to subscribe and ensure you never miss an episode. Together, we will uncover the legends and truths that define the human spirit.